stop talking, please.
So we're getting started. We're doing a couple opening remarks, but thank you so much for coming today to the 2025 Industry Forum. And we're looking forward to having a great day with all of you. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Katie Ruckle, the state's Chief Privacy Officer.
And I'm Nick Stowe. I am the state's Chief Technology Officer. In the next couple of slides, you may not know us or know our roles, so we'll introduce you to us a little bit more in detail.
Right, and today's theme is about resilience. And talking about resilience, this is Nick and I. We are two Grit City kids from Tacoma, Washington. And yes, let's hear it for Tacoma. We went to rival high schools, and despite that, we have gotten through that and we're resilient together.
It is like the model of multi-generational resilience, especially because we started out going to the same elementary school and then became bitter rivals in high school.
Yes, and middle school.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Something happened.
All public schools, too. But now you can see that we have won lots of awards, and that is in no part due to our keynote speaker and support, Bill Kehoe. But you may know us from such shows as Between Two Nerds.
Critically acclaimed show, by the way.
Critically acclaimed. Inside Olympia. The House Technology, Economic Development, and Veterans Affairs
Also a very good show.
And this is ENET, the Energy and Environment and Technology Committee. So Nick and I have been able to do a lot of these events together, and we think it's been so great to have privacy, which kind of looks at IT from the business side of things, and then technology to be able to really help with some of the messages that we're trying to help and build the policies for the state of Washington in being resilient and building technology.
So now that you know us a little bit more, and now that all of you are scrambling to try to watch the latest episode of Between Two Nerds, we figured we want to introduce you to some of the other leaders and sessions that we'll have today. So right after we're done speaking, please stay here, don't go anywhere. Bill Kehoe, our state CIO, has a really exciting keynote about the future of IT resilience from his perspective. You'll also we'll have a fireside chat with a couple of really experienced and resilient leaders in the state about leadership through change. And I don't know about all of you, I particularly have experienced tons of change in the past. Well, I don't remember when change stopped. It feels like we've been doing this for a while. So a really good perspective, a really good fireside chat against in here. Speaking of change, in here, Deanna will have a really good panel and engaging discussion about leadership in times of change.
So we also are going to have the opportunity to connect with the vendors that are here today, and we want to thank especially all of our state tables that are here. And so thank you so much for state agencies and your participation. And hopefully there'll be lots of good conversations today so we can talk about the best way to move forward with some of our resilient activities in sort of challenging times, especially challenging budget times.
One of the things I really appreciate about this format is the opportunity to have these really quick, exciting and meaningful discussions between agencies and industry partners. Some of those discussions in the past industry forums led to some of the awards that Katie and I have been able to kind of sponsor and with our teams be recognized nationally. And so don't underestimate the value of those engagements, and really try to figure out how we can partner using this format. Think of all of these different ways and challenges that we have as state agencies and how our industry partners can help. And so we're really excited about that format and forum, and invite you to be engaging and really lean into those today. We also, we're gonna have some breakout sessions focused on specific topics. So in the agenda, you'll be able to see and be able to pick kind of which topic you want to address. I'm not going to say that my panel will be one of the better ones, but we are talking about AI and resilient IT operations, and you can't get away from a forum or any kind of discussion on technology without talking about AI. So take a look at all of our panels and make sure that you're engaging. We have some really good kind of multi-agency, multidisciplinary teams that'll be there to talk about different perspectives on resilience and technology.
We also have Wi-Fi, so if you haven't gotten the Wi-Fi and the password, we have bathrooms around the corner. On the other side, we have food, and then above all, we have the opportunity to network with each other. And we also, of course, need to thank all of our sponsors that made today possible as well. So thank you to the vendor community for coming out and supporting us and wanting to engage with the state of Washington.
So we really, again, I don't think we can thank all of the agencies who've shown up today enough. Thank you to all of the industry partners who've shown up and the ones who have sponsored. I am being sincere in saying that a lot of the work that Katie and I have done, maybe not so much between two nerds, but the other opportunities have really come from ideas and discussions from this kind of format and this forum. And we really value your engagement and your partnership. And we really appreciate you showing up and hope that you have a really great forum for the rest of the day.
So thank you so much for listening to the opening remarks. And of course, without Bill's support and the support of our teams and staff at WaTech, we wouldn't be able to have such a great program for you today. So thank you for coming. And welcome, Bill.
Test, test, test. Nice job. So, were those pictures just last year, or was this?
That's how much we've changed.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it was a tough year.
That was great. We were smiling. Welcome, everybody. You ready to go today? Come on, you gotta get some energy going in this room. Yeah. So, I want to thank Katie and Nick, but I also want to thank our team, Vicki Sheehan, Rhonda Mendel, and our folks that put this on. Could you give them a hand? They just do a tremendous job. So, I don't know how many of you have been to a previous, we call this industry forum or reverse industry forum, where we have agencies have booths instead of vendors. Isn't that cool? So this is all about our industry partners getting to collaborate with us, right? Outside of sending us emails and trying to get meetings, which never happen. So take advantage of this day, right? Get away from your buddies and go meet some new people, because we need our industry partners to be successful so we can be successful. And we understand that. And this day is really for you, to meet us, to meet our agencies, understand where they're going, and make connections, right? Because it's not meeting with me that's going to get you into the right doors. It's meeting with these agencies and meeting with our WaTech staff as well. Okay, so please take advantage of this, and thank you all for being here. I know some of you traveled to get here today. That doesn't go unnoticed. We appreciate that, and we want this day to be worth your time. Okay, and thanks to our agencies that are here in these booths, probably feeling very awkward, going, this doesn't feel right, I should be out there. They're here today to talk to you, our industry partners, and give you some real transparent information about where they're at and what they need from you, and to learn about your products and services. Because one thing that I have always taken away from any conference I've gone to is that there are some very good industry partners that we don't get to meet very often, and so we don't know what you do. And we want to know. We want to know, right? We're not giving you this thing that you get a lot from other states. Not Washington. No, it's like, bring it. We want to get to know what you do. So thanks for being here. This is just a great day because I remember the first industry forum we had a couple years ago out in Lacey. Anybody attend that? At our little community center, you know, we kind of had this idea of, hey, let's do this thing and see if it works. And we got some feedback, and 2 years later, here we are. This is great. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to start my keynote. Usually I get up here and kind of drag on about, oh, look at all the cool things we got in our strategy. Isn't this great? And here's how you can help us, right? It's a different message today. And I think it needs to be because of all the changes that are happening. And I want to be very transparent about what those changes are. But I also want to be really positive about how we all need to partner and collaborate to make this experience that we're going to go through not a really difficult, hard, but an exciting opportunity. And I don't want to sugarcoat that because I really believe it. So 3 things I want to, if you don't take anything away from what I say today, 3 things. Number 1, we got this. We got this. All right? Washington's going to be okay. Number 2, it's not business as usual. We can't do the things the same way we've always done them. We've got to do things differently. We've got to work together a lot better than we have been. We've got to partner closer with the industry and in the state. We've got to share. We can't have so much duplication. We've got to be more efficient. So that's the second thing. Partner and collaboration, big. The third is that we have to innovate. We've got to use AI, we've got to use technology to help our agencies move forward. And technology has to be that enabler, okay? And so let's talk about how we're going to do that. And that's not waiting in the wings. We got to be bold and courageous and lead, both from the industry side and the state side. Everything that we have today in the state requires good technology. Name one thing, one line of business, one program that does not involve technology. It doesn't exist, and if it does, it's probably not very good, right? So we got to lean in. We got to lean in a lot more. The other message that I want you to take away is that if you're a public servant, you're doing one heck of a job, and we appreciate you. I don't want to get political because I'm not going to do that, but there's a lot of negativity around public servants today. Ignore that. I know the great people that work in the state of Washington in our agencies and the great work you do and your commitment to serving the public and the lack of appreciation that you probably don't get, but we appreciate you. So please don't get discouraged. This is a great state, and we have the best public servants around. So thank you. And then the other message is to our industry partners. You know, SLED is not easy, and it's going to get more difficult. But I see your commitment to our state, your commitment to making us better, and you feel like you're part of us. So thank you, and we appreciate you as well. You can clap on that one too. All right, I better start moving through here or I'm going to get the hook. Man, I love these slides. Oh, wow. Isn't that great? Okay, so my topic today is, as Nick and Katie said, resilience. And as I said, it's not my usual keynote, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot of changes that are taking place, right? And it's not going to be business as usual. So what I challenge all of us today is, what does that mean for you? Whether you're a state employee or in industry. What is business? It's not business as usual. What kind of adjustments and shifts do you have to make so that we can be more effective? If you're here today and you're thinking, despite all these changes, we're just going to keep on doing what we've been doing, it's not going to happen. However, if we make those adjustments, we understand the impacts, we make those adjustments to our business, our agencies, then we can get through this and it's going to be great. But it's not going to be business as usual. There, I said it again. I'm going to say it on every slide. So two things can happen, and I've seen this in my career. When you have a lot of change and you get these daunting reports almost every day, oh my gosh, federal money's going away and the state budget's in the tank. Two things can happen. We can just wait it out, hope it gets better. Does that work? Puneet, does that work? No. Good answer. Or we can work hard to find new ways of working to keep things moving forward. Let's do that. Let's do that. What's wrong with that? I happen to have an incredible amount of confidence, not only with my agency and the great people of WaTech, but the great people that work in agencies. I've been here long enough. I've seen the talent and the commitment and the innovation that's occurring in agencies. We got this, folks, if we work together and when we realize that we got to make some adjustments. We have the talent. We have the talent on our industry side that's committed to our state. So with all that talent, let's not just wait it out and hope it gets better. Let's actually find ways to work better and work together. Can we do that? Please, commitment. Let's commitment to that. So, I better go to the next slide here. I just like all that water so much. So leadership is obviously, it's always important, right? But in times of challenge, in tough times, leadership is even more important. Who are the leaders in this room? Everybody. Yes, thank you. Everybody's a leader, right? Industry. So we all have an opportunity to lead. We have a sphere of influence, and it's a great opportunity, but it's not business as usual. So what does that mean? That means that we're probably going to have to get into areas that are going to make us uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. That's not very, that's how you grow. That's how we all grow. That's how we get better, right? So we're going to come through this. We're going to be better because we're going to lean in as leaders, and we're going to grow from this experience. And we're going to create new networks and new collaborations and new partnerships and forge a new path. So that's another challenge and commitment to you. Where are you in your leadership, right? Are you waiting for others to lead you? Are you leaning in enough on your own? No matter what level, it doesn't matter, right? We all have a role and a responsibility to lead. And leadership right now in the next 4 years is going to be incredibly important if we're going to move forward. So what is a resilient leader? What kind of characteristics does a resilient leader have? Well, someone who's positive and calm in the face of daunting obstacles. You don't want to be up, if I was up here going, I'm sorry, it's hopeless. It's hopeless. We can't do this. It's like, no, we got this. But y'all need to have that, right? The people depend on it. They can't have leaders that are just saying, yeah, this is too much. I'm just going to hide out for a few years. Hope this passes. It's not going to pass. Solutions oriented. We need new solutions. We need new ways of doing things. We don't need leaders that say, well, we don't have budget. Guess we can't do that. Let's figure something out. Let's figure with the budget we have. Let's do something different with the budget we have. Let's ask our industry partners to help us. New ways of doing business with the state, right? Can't accept standing idle and waiting this out. We need action. We need solutions. We've got to innovate and think of new ways of doing business. That's absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. We also need leadership that values partnership and collaboration, because we can't do it alone, and we're going to be better through that collaboration. And we got to stay true to our values and high standards. We got to invest in our people. Those are all leadership traits that we need to embody. We got to reach out to other people, encourage other people, make sure that it's not all about us, right? As leaders. That's really important. What we don't need is drama, blame, negativity, obstacles thrown in our way, and excuses. Can I get applause on that? Those are all things that you can do, but one of my favorite sayings, and I'm probably get this wrong, but I think it was Roosevelt that said, get in the arena, get dirty, get bloody, get in the arena. Don't be that person throwing rocks in the stands. We need people in the arena. We need all of you in the arena. Don't throw rocks, because, yeah, you can criticize a lot. But don't criticize the people that are making things happen and trying their best, right? Get in the arena. Be part of the solution. It's going to be uncomfortable, but that's the best place to grow. Okay. So, here's the part where I tell you all these things that are happening, right? And I do this not because I want to, bum you out now, but we got a new governor, Governor Ferguson. You can clap on that too. I'm impressed, I must say. So I'm not just saying that because I got a new boss that wanted me back, by the way, but I'm impressed. He is focused on our residents. He wants to do right by the people of Washington. One of the things he always tells us at Cabinet is every decision we make with what impact is it going to have on our residents that we serve. Every decision. I like that. We all should like that, right? He doesn't like bureaucracy. He wants to remove bureaucracy. He wants to remove inefficiencies. Wants to save money. He loves telling the story about how he was going to spend $70,000 for carpet in his office. And he says, I don't need that carpet. Let's save the $70,000. So he's very into efficiency, effective government, remove bureaucracy, and he's very much into enterprise, working across agencies to serve our residents better. I love that. We have new ledge members. Y'all been meeting with them and getting them up to speed on Washington, right? A lot of new ledge members as well. That's change. And we got this thing called a budget shortfall. Every CFO or budget analyst I've ever worked with has always told me, we have no money, Bill, for that thing you want to do. We just don't have any money, right? Well, I've never maybe heard these types of shortfalls where it's $16 million over 4 years. That's a big number, right? And $4 billion that agencies are trying to cover through cuts and savings. And we have on the table pending agency cuts that are pretty dramatic, that are impacting jobs, impacting programs, that are on the table that the ledge is considering now. That's a big change. Potential furloughs, staff cuts, project funding that's in jeopardy. Federal government, which on any day, given day, I have no idea what money we have and we don't. But there's things like cyber, Medicaid, programs like that that could be impacted, right? And impacting communities that need it the most, right? And then there's this perception of government workers. Like, well, they don't show up for work. They're not performing. All these negative things. And I say, you know what? Public service is honorable. I choose not to listen to that because I know better with the people I've worked with all my career and have seen that commitment. So these are all the things that are facing us, folks. And as I said, we got two choices. One, wait it out. Or number two, let's roll up our sleeves, get to work, and find ways to continue to move forward because we can do it. We got this. So the other thing that's important as part of resiliency, after there's an awareness of the problem, right, and communication of that problem, is to assess and adapt. So I think part of this is twofold. One is personal. So one of the things that this has done for me, I can only speak for me, is it's really forced me to say, you know what, I got to get better. I got to be a better CIO. I got to be a better leader for my staff, for my state. What do I need to change? I think when you go through times like this, it really forces you to look at yourself as a leader and go, yeah, I'm not doing this very well, and I got to do this better. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I haven't done very well over the years is meet with our legislators. I haven't done that enough. And as a state CIO, if I'm not meeting with the legislators, then I'm not representing our IT community as well as I could or my agency. So I challenged myself. I got to go meet with a lot of legislators, and I've been doing that. Stretching myself to do that. So that's one example. So what about you? This is a great time for all of us to kind of assess where we are in our journey, what we can do better, where we need to grow. So I would challenge all of us to do that. This is a great time to do that, your personal journey. And seek out a mentor, get some feedback. Industry, state, employee, it doesn't matter. We can all do better, and as we grow, then we're all going to grow, and we're all going to be able to collaborate and do great things. For organizations, whether you're on the industry side or the state side, you got to take all these things in, all the changes we just mentioned, and you have to assess the impact of that on your agency, and agencies are doing that now. But in that, you've got to find ways to keep moving forward. So in WaTech, we have critical projects that I will not give up on. Absolutely never give up on. One of those is a resident portal. Another one is our new identity and access management project. I will never give up on those two projects because that's what our residents need, right? Now, if you look at the governor's budget for those two projects, you're going to kind of going, Bill, what are you going to do? We're going to find a way, right? We're going to find a way. We're going to partner with industry. We're going to partner with our agencies, and we're going to find a way to keep moving forward on those projects. And the other thing we're not going to do is give up on improving our services at WaTech. In fact, we have a new theme called Service Excellence, where every single service is going to identify how they're going to get better. We're going to implement lean throughout the agency. We're going to improve our processes. We are going to improve how we serve our customers because that's the right thing to do, and it's a great time to do it. So what are those critical projects and agencies that you have to move forward, and you got to find a way to move forward? And maybe you don't have the money. Maybe you've lost some staff, but you've got to move forward. That's why we have to work together. Because if we work together to move forward, then there's more of a likelihood you're going to be successful. So let's do that. Right? If you're an agency and you're wondering, how can I move forward? I don't have the budget, I don't have this. Oh, thank you. How do you know I needed that? Then reach out. We all have to be working together as one state. And if you're an industry partner and you have a certain rate, or you have a certain model for business, guess what? You might have to flip that upside down. And we need you to. Because we're taking severe cuts, and the pain is going to be felt throughout. And we need you to come in at a very potentially low cost, no cost, work with us to get us to a better place so that eventually we can be successful and you can be successful. So short term, think long term, okay? So seize the opportunity. As I said, there's two ways of looking at this, wait it out. And I've heard people say that, well, I'm just going to keep my head down for 4 years and hopefully things will get better. No, they won't. This is like COVID in terms of the impact. This is going to change, and I believe in a positive way, how we do business, how we operate as a state. We're going to be much more collaborative. We're going to present ourselves to our residents as one state. We're going to work together across agency lines. And this is the time to do that. This is the time to do that. We did it during COVID. We did amazing things during COVID, amazing partnerships with industry. This is just as severe. It calls for a new way of doing business. And we got the talent and the commitment to make it happen. We need the will. We need the will. I love it when somebody tells me, or my agency, give it up, it's not going to happen. Those are the best times of my life. Because I just say, you just watch, right? You just watch. I've had this happen so many times in my career where it was like, well, you can't do that. Your agency can't do that. Why are you even thinking you can do that? And you have to have that belief in yourself and your staff and you got to rally people, and you can accomplish anything. You really can. So please don't take all this change and the budget and everything else as oh no, maybe I should go to another state. Believe me, you don't want to do that either. Stay with us. You got to seize it. It's a great time to grow as a professional, grow as a leader, and look for new ways of getting things done and moving forward. Don't throw obstacles. Don't make excuses. Keep things moving and work across agency lines. So this is always something I've encouraged. I've encouraged it even more now. On the industry side, work together. I love it when I see 2 or 3 firms coming together, bidding on a project, or coming together and presenting an idea on how we can improve. This is the time to partner. Don't compete, collaborate. We need you to collaborate, and we need you to bring to the table new ways of doing business with government. As I said, if you can come to the table and say, we have an idea, we're not even going to charge you anything to get this idea. You'd like that? Come on. You got to be in it for the long game, folks. It's the long game, right? I know you have your models, but flip them upside down, because it's going to be outside looking in if you're not careful. Come to the table, 2 or 3 vendors, present an idea on how we can continue to move forward, very low cost, and let us build with you towards the future, right? There's going to be a gain there eventually, but you got to look at things differently than you have in the past. And on the agency side, we got to collaborate more. We got to talk to each other. I'm going to tell this story about Jesse. You remember Get Jesse from King 5? Well, he's a cabinet member now for Results Washington. How cool is that? And so in the cabinet meeting yesterday, and I think I can say this, if not, who cares? He said, "You people don't talk to each other." He goes, "In my short time here, I've seen incredible talent, people's incredibly talent, but you stay in your silos. You got to get out there and talk to each other." That's what we got to do. And this is from somebody who just came into the state. You got to share. He goes, you're working on the same things in multiple agencies. Why are you doing that? Combine talent, combine solutions. We can do that, right? Let's do that. But traditionally, we've been in this, my agency, my way. We got to lift your head up, look around, because it's a new day, and the governor and his cabinet are committed to enterprise and reaching across agencies, common solutions, being more efficient, and saving dollars. And that's a positive message, folks. Can you get behind that? And then once we start moving, I'm going to get the hook here. Okay. Once we've assessed the impact, we've figured out how we're going to move forward, we've got new partnerships, we've done the leadership thing, then we stop doing the analysis paralysis, folks, and move forward and execute. Execute. Well, I heard something else the other day that was painful, but true, and it's like, why it seems like all we do is report, but we're not executing. Right? We're reporting on things, but we're not executing on things. Let's be executors. Let's move forward. Let's take risks. We're going to make mistakes. It's okay, but we're moving forward. We might not hit every deadline, but we're moving forward. Let's remove that fear, okay? So I'll close by saying this is an exciting time. I'm glad I'm here as your state CIO. I'm committed to improving my leadership and the way I operate. We got this. We can move forward. We're going to be better for it, and it's going to transform how we work. So thank you for being here today. Let's have a great day. Okay. That won't work on me, Bill. I'm sorry. Now I will introduce our great Deputy of Strategy and Management, Deanna Brocker, who will facilitate our next panel, and she's got a fantastic panel. It will be.
Will it?
Yeah.
Make a little adjustment. 1 second. Good job, boss. Round of applause for both Kehoe. Oh, your mic is on.
Rob, is my mic on? I can project. I'm really good at it. Do you have it on? Yeah, the green light's on. Ooh, wait. There we go. Are we on? Can you hear me in the back? Give me a... Here we go. There we go. Sound all right? Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Where's my panel? Get up here. It's not just me. You don't have to just listen to me. Hi, everybody. I hear we have some tiki torches. We're going to have a little fireside chat. I think someone's going to come take care of my podium.
Give it a try.
Yeah, get to the green light and do a little test.
Okay.
Hi. Come on up. I don't think we've met.
I'm Brad.
Well, hi, Brad.
Test.
Look at my
Can you hear?
chew my.
I can't hear.
They can hear me.
I don't know if they're hearing me. I am green. Can you hear?
Hello.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up. Okay, thank you.
Gotta get that light be brighter.
I wish the light were brighter. Where's Bill? Did he have to do that the whole time? My goodness. That light?
The light. This is the stuff usually they put down on that happens all behind the scenes.
It'll help with your tan.
Live in real time.
Yeah.
Turn mine off.
Yep.
I'm waiting for my.
There you go, stand there.
Oh, look at that. Tiki torch.
Very nice.
Okay. There, look at you. Did you see? You just literally did this in it, and then there was like, it was amazing. I'm in. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started if that's okay.
We lost you.
Cutting out.
Yeah.
I know. It's green though. I am green, but I think I got a problem. Right. Oh, the Madonna one? No. It's like it's cutting out.
You can just like,
How'd you do with this light, Bill?
yeah.
This thing's brutal.
Got my shades.
I feel like I'm being interrogated. It's like,
You are.
man, so just like, yep. My mic is the one that shouldn't be working, to be fair to everybody. She was in my last stand-up show, so she's, yeah.
How's that? Testing. Woo! Did we lose 5 minutes? We lost 5 minutes. Hi, everybody. Deanna Brocker, Deputy Director, Strategy and Management at WaTech. We're here for a little fireside chat, leadership in times of change. I'm going to sit down in a minute, but I want to introduce the folks behind me on my panel. First, we have Brad Benfield, who I've been on many meetings with, but this is the first time I've seen him in person, so very excited. It's good to meet you, Brad. Brad is the Assistant Director, Programs and Services, Department of Licensing, yes?
That's correct, yes.
I have Lou McDermott, moving this way, Deputy Director, Healthcare Authority,
Correct.
right? And also Business Management Council current co-chair. Thank you for your service.
You keep bringing that up.
Yeah, I'm going to keep bringing it up. Scott West, Chief Information Officer at Department of Ecology, and co-chair of the Technology Management Council, right?
Yep.
Yes. And Lisa Kistler, Chief Innovation Officer, is that right? Chief Innovation
changed it.
Officer at Employment Security Department, and former and original Business Management Counselor co-chair. So we're leaning on our community, our governance community for this, and their expertise for this chat. So I'm very, very excited about it. So our charge here today as your panel is to explore leadership strategies for building, ready Bill, resilient organizations and enterprises. I'm going to strive to say resilient as many times as I can just to get bonus points with my boss. That's my goal up here today, right? Because Nick referenced it earlier. I don't know where Nick went to, but he referenced earlier that it feels like change is just like it never stopped. Change is no longer a one-time event. Change is constant. And the more that we start to understand that, the easier it's going to be for us to build these resilient organizations. Now, before we get started with the panel, I do have questions. They're ready. It's going to be amazing. I'm hoping you'll do a little thought experiment with me. So if you just close your eyes, think back to when you were a kid and when you first pictured the Easter Bunny. Just sit with that for a few seconds. Picture the Easter Bunny in your mind. Questions to ask yourself: how big is it? Was it like a small rabbit, like what you see in your backyard? Size of a golden retriever? Maybe 6 feet tall? Maybe full-sized, Sasquatch size? Right? When you think about that, right? Has everybody got it? Okay, show of hands. How many people's Easter Bunny is the size of a regular bunny rabbit like you see in your backyard? As you raise your hands, look around. Okay. Now raise your hand if you think the Easter Bunny is about, say, 4 feet tall. What about 6 feet tall? That is the only correct answer, because that's what my Easter Bunny looks like. What about Sasquatch size? We got one in the back. So here's the catch. None of you, not one of you, has seen the Easter Bunny in real life. But you all have a very clear picture of what that looks like in your mind. We all form that image from a very young age, and it turns out, as you saw, those images vary widely from person to person. So that's what we call the Easter Bunny paradox. And so we have some very specific questions for our panel around the Easter Bunny paradox. I will say, Scott, it was suggested that I ask you to come in costume today.
I have 2 of them.
Yeah, but I felt that that would ruin the thought experiment
That is
because
true.
how tall are you? Everybody would say that the Easter Bunny was 5'10". Is that how tall you are? Approximately. Yeah. So how do we apply this to leadership? Very simple. When we say things like resilience, innovation, transformation, how do you know that the other people you're talking to, your teams, your peers, other agencies, are picturing the same thing? And maybe more importantly, when they're not. So that's where leadership gets really interesting. Bill referenced a lot of the changes we have going on. He talked about a new governor for the first time in 12 years. He talked about the budget shortfall that we're all navigating. And I believe you, we're going to be fine. Washington is going to be fine. I agree. You can applaud that. Why do we have to ask for applause? I feel like I'm begging for it up here, right? At the same time, technology, security, customer expectations, all changing at lightning speed. So the big question panel, we're getting ready, how do we build resilient organizations, one that can adapt, recover, and thrive no matter what comes our way? So that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm going to start with Brad. You get the lucky first question, I think, because it's the first time we're meeting. So here we go. As a leader, how have you seen the Easter Bunny paradox play out in your teams or your organizations when it comes to building resilience? And what are some of the most common misunderstandings or misalignments, maybe, that you run into?
That's such a great question. Within my agency, I executive sponsor or business sponsor probably 3 to 6 IT projects a year in addition to my day job, kind of running driver and vehicle licensing back office stuff. And in that capacity, 3 of the biggest Easter bunnies I come across on a regular basis are project sponsorship itself. People have really different ideas of what project sponsorship is. Another one is vendor management, which, in people's minds around at least our agency is kind of this vapor cloud of, mixed ideas of roles and responsibilities. But I think in terms of resilience, the thing I see most often, and the thing that I really want to focus on in coming years, is organizational change management. And that's something that, everybody in my organization believes is very important, but I think there are a lot of different ideas about what that actually looks like and whether or not it's actually working. And I think it's critical for resilience because helping our folks through change is foundational, and it's where we either build or lose credibility as leaders. Kind of everyday stuff. And so one of the things that we do is, we have an organizational change unit that helps, come in and work with our project managers. And, they're great people. They work really, really hard, and we're much better off with them than not with them. But I think that in a lot of cases, we're focused in the wrong areas. They come in and they create plans as we're setting up a project. They draft communications before, during the course of the project that are going to be used, prior to and after we, launch a project. But it's really fairly static, and at this point we don't have great feedback loops. So we're not able to actually see what's going on, at the lower levels and react to it fast enough. We find ourselves in a common situation where, we'll send out some communication, and instead of having an OCM person, come to me and say, hey, we sent this out, it didn't land very well with this particular unit, here's what we're going to do about it. More often than not, I'll hear about it 3 days later at a leadership team meeting, and then I have to go to the OCM person and say, hey, this is the feedback I'm getting, and they just look at me and say, well, what do you want me to do?
Panic.
Well, apparently your job. So, that's it. I kid about that, but that is really something that we're going to be working on.
I think it's such a good point. When I got to the state 3 years ago, I heard a lot of, hey, we got OCM on that. And I thought it was so cool. I'm like, this is like the first organization I've been at where people regularly talk about organizational change management. That's amazing. And about 3 months into it, I started asking people, hey, what's that mean to you? What do you mean when you say OCM? And they would say, well, we got a training plan. And I go, cool. That's not OCM. No, we got a comms plan. Amazing. That's not OCM, right? So I think you're right. A lot people know it's the right thing to do, but there are so many tools in that OCM toolkit. Knowing when to apply them for what reason and what purpose is a whole other thing. That's such a good point.
Yeah, it's time to evolve it and take it to a new level.
Yeah, I agree. Scott, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so resiliency, the word resilience, and I'm going to speak from an IT lens point because we've got business, and innovation here.
Both.
On both sides. So the word resilient to me in IT doesn't make a lot of sense And the reason I'll say that is because IT is a constant changer. I have been fortunate in my time that when I started doing IT back when I was 17 years old, that I've seen transformations that I don't think many people ever thought we would see in our lifetimes, right? I mean, the power of a giant, I don't know if you all remember these giant computers and now into a piece, in a laptop, in your phone, quantum computing. I thought I'd never see quantum computing in my lifetime. I'm 56. I thought, nah, it's never going to happen. I think we're about 10 years away from we actually see quantum computing, and not just quantum computing in giant computers, but in small home-based systems. I mean, Microsoft's new chip, Amazon's new chips, right? You start looking at that. AI. And so for me, IT is nothing but built on resiliency because our entire world is nothing but change. Programming languages change constantly. Applications, the way that we interact with an application, the way that we look at things. To me, resiliency is just a built-in part of IT and should be. And so if there are IT people going, well, I'm just not ready for this. I had no idea this was coming. And I don't mean this to sound inconsiderate or anything, then you probably shouldn't be in IT. I'm sorry. IT is nothing but change and resiliency. You must be adaptable at constant, because when I wake up in the morning and I read TechCrunch or GeekWire, the world is moving so quickly that even I can't keep up anymore. And so I look at resiliency as, at the business side, absolutely, positively learning how to change with the movement of IT, but in the world of IT, resiliency should just be built into you, because if you're really passionate about IT and that is what you do, you are totally resilient to the changes that happen around you in IT, and you adapt to it.
That's interesting. So not having that alignment or having misalignment. Yes, go ahead. We can applaud. Nice. Thank you. Having misalignment, whether it's IT or the business, and I, at some point, would love for Lisa, I'm going to put her on the spot here in a minute, to talk about how it's not IT versus business. So I'm going to come to you in a minute, and I'd like to, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit on that one. But having misalignment in IT, business, regardless of where you work in the organization, will weaken an organization's resilience, right? So Lou, go step back with me a little bit. Why does resilience even matter? Whether it's IT or at the business level or government, why does resilience even matter in government operations? Like, what are the real consequences if an organization isn't resilient? And then on the flip side, what does it mean to be a resilient organization?
I struggle with the word resilient as well. I think of it as sort of a construct around how well are you able to adapt to change. So change is coming. Are you doing a great job? And if you're really doing a great job and you're accepting the changes and you're incorporating them and doing, people say, wow, you're a really resilient organization. But it really is in degrees. Each organization has so many different components to it, especially the larger organizations. When you get over 1,000 employees, 2,000 employees, what does it mean to be resilient? I always like giving examples. So one example is our deputy CIO was in communications and logistics in the Pentagon during 9/11. So he's the one that actually transferred the call to President Bush. And he came and worked for us. We happened to get him. He came out of the military, was looking for a job, retired in Fort Lewis. So we wound up getting him. And then you fast forward to COVID. What was the one thing that was impossible to get your hands on? Laptops, right? You had to send everyone home. So everyone went from these machines at their desk to going home. We needed laptops. Guess who didn't have a problem getting any laptops? HCA. Because our guy knew everybody in the industry because of his work at the Pentagon. He had friends at Dell and all different kinds of computer companies, and he would just get moved up on the list. And so, is that a reflection of how resilient the healthcare authority is? It's like, no, it was a guy who had a really good connection. So my point there is that there's many aspects of the work, and there's many signals on how that work is going. And is management paying attention to that? Are you paying attention to those details? Because when the hard changes come, that's not the time to go back and say, do we have the right person in the right job? Do we have the right processes set up? Is our governance good? It's too late. You're in the game now. So, everything is sort of made prior to the change happening. Do we have good processes? Do we communicate with people? Do we have regular sessions with our staff so they understand what we're doing and how we're doing it? And do these things make sense? And do we have weaknesses in our system? So when a lot of people are spending time working on the change that's before them, I try and concentrate on the things that will make that change doable. What do we need to have in place for that change to be successful? So if you focus more of your time on that, you find that the rest sort of sorts itself out. The right people in the right jobs with the right connection to each other, with the right infrastructure, with the right reporting structure, with the right metrics. You put all that together, and then you throw a big change at the agency, it has a tendency to do well.
Yeah, Lisa, what do you think? What does it mean to be a resilient organization?
So I think for me, part of it is about adaptability to change. But I think the bigger thing is how well do you respond to failure? So I think, like to Scott's point about, resiliency doesn't matter in IT, beg to differ. But because it's about, we should be failing all the time and failing fast. If we're actually innovating, if we're actually trying the things, if we're actually accepting some risk, which I think organizations that are resilient do that, right? If you're in a time of crisis, if you're being stress tested, it means making decisions, accepting risk, and acting in a way that you're not afraid of failure. And the key part of resiliency is about how do you respond to failure. So I think at Employment Security, our whole book of business is responding to challenging conditions, right? So I like to use the stat, it's a frequent one if you follow anything about employment security, that during the pandemic we paid in 18 months the same amount of benefits we had paid in the previous 18 years.
Wow.
So massive.
Wait, say that again. That's
in 18
huge.
months, we paid the same number of benefits as we had paid in the previous 18 years.
And you did, yes.
So, I don't think at Employment Security we ever went what we need to be ready for is a global pandemic where we pay out where we're relied on in this way.
Yeah.
And I think part of the question was about consequences. The consequences of us not being willing to fail and learn from those failures is people need us. People need us in these moments. Did anybody in our organization, are they waiting for another pandemic? Do they want that to happen again? Absolutely not, right? Nobody ever wants to live that again. And I've seen us as an organization respond in ways after those sort of big crisis events, in ways that are we should have been better, or blaming each other, or not taking the lessons from that and turning them into goodness. And I've seen us as a result of the pandemic go, what did we need to be better at as an organization? We needed to be better at having an organized way to make decisions. We needed to be better at being clear about our strategic priorities. We needed to be better at customer experience and understanding our customers' experience and being able to continuously improve, which has driven us to change the way we do our work as an organization. And that is a decade's investment. It's not so next year we'll be better at all these things, right? We'll get a little better, and then a little better, and then a little better, which to me is that's the key to resiliency is what did you learn from those stress tests, and then how do you apply it to getting a little better, and then a little better, and a little better as an organization.
I think that's super true when we talk about, please. When we talk about some of the really big initiatives that we've got going on, and Bill referenced that earlier, I've said to my boss before, I don't know where we're going to be in December, but we'll be further than we are today. And that has to be an okay answer sometimes, right? Because you learn as you go, and when you know better, you do better. And I think that speaks also to the feedback loops that Lou was talking about.
Hey, Deanna, just very quickly to what Lisa was saying.
That's the Easter Bunny paradox.
Yeah, that's the Easter Bunny paradox. So, failure, absolutely. Here's the thing about IT and resiliency, and why is that IT fails constantly, but you have to do it in the shadows. Yeah. Because for IT to fail, that means you can't do your jobs, right? So when IT fails in doing something, that means you might not come into work that day and be able to access your laptop. You can't get to an application. So IT is all about, we fail constantly. I encourage, and I know many of the CIOs out here, we encourage our teams to fail constantly, but you have to fail quietly
Safely,
behind the
quietly.
shadows,
Don't,
right?
Don't impact anybody when you
Yeah,
fail.
yeah, because when you come in and the director goes, why can't I access this today? We go, well, we failed miserably,
That's
right?
right.
It's like, it doesn't work.
Fail goodly,
Right.
not badly.
But that's why the little iterative improvements are so critical as
Yeah.
opposed to the all at once, all my eggs in one basket approach. Pardon the Easter Bunny pun. I'm going to
Yep.
do as much as I can here. So Scott, let's stay with you. So we've established, I think, that resilience is critical, I think. But if it were easy, we'd all have it figured out. And we clearly don't. So beyond the obvious pressures, budget cuts, policy shifts, what are the deeper, more subtle reasons that you think that organizations struggle with resilience? Is it leadership misalignment? Is it Bill referenced analysis paralysis, culture, something else?
So I'm going to, I've been with the state now 8.5 years. I came from the private sector, and I think I've learned a lot in 8.5 years. I've had incredible mentors, friendships out in this group. And I will tell you, I think the thing that is the fear of what we're about to do is going to change my job or the way that I do something, right? So after 8.5 years and talking with everybody, what I have always come back to, what it has always come back to at the end, is the fear of how it is going to impact the way I do my work. And if I was to come in and say, hey, listen, if we implement this change, if we take this and we do this, it is going to allow you to get out of that menial day-to-day drudge that you're doing and allow you to thrive in what we brought you in here to do, right? But they're so embedded in the day-to-day that it is very difficult for them to change their mindset to go, well, wait a minute, if I'm not doing this, what am I doing? Right? And I think that is, and including, look, I'm in IT, I love change, but I will tell you, Tracy gives me grief about this, that's my spouse, is if you go into my grocery store and they take and rearrange where things are at, that I've been shopping there for years, and I go, well, where the hell is the ketchup? It was here yesterday. I get frustrated, right? Because it's like, I know that's where the ketchup is at. And I think that is our biggest challenge moving forward, is getting people to recognize that you still have value even though your job is going to change. Probably for the betterment, and you're going to be happy. But you have to get them over that hump of understanding that you don't want to do this. Who wants to stare at a bunch of numbers for weeks and try to guess if this is correct or not? When allow it to do it and go back to doing what you are really good at. I feel like that is the big thing.
So fear of the unknown? Fear of, is it a job security thing? Is it just...
It's a fear, I wouldn't even say it's a fear of the unknown. It is the fear of that it's going to change me, that you're asking me to change the way I come in. I am comfortable. This is what I do. I come in every day, and this is normal for me. This is what I do. And changing that changes everything about me and my work. And I think that is where there's a lot of, and I don't even want to call it tension, it's just this is who I am, and this is what defines me, and you're asking to redefine who I am. And that's a lot. If you stop and think about that from a personal thing, if somebody came to you, Deanna, and said, listen, you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I know you spend 4 hours a day doing this, but we're taking this, and we're going to automate this, or we're going to do this, and we're going to make it so the systems behind the scenes do all this work, but that's going to free you up for 4 hours to do other things. You immediately start to go, but.
I think I would be concerned about the level of value that I added all those years that I was doing that work.
Yes,
and so
ma'am.
it would start to shake a belief system of,
Yes.
right? Yes,
Yeah.
did I get it? Okay, light bulb moment. So, but let's go to Lisa's example of COVID and all of the great work that you're able to do. Did that play out? The fear of, what do you mean I don't have to do it the same way?
To some extent, but I think that when you're in those crisis moments, and that's why, like, you know, there's that expression, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So in those crisis moments, people aren't like, you know, when we're like on the news because somebody can't get their benefits, or our phones are blowing up, or like, you know, our systems are like possibly buckling under the weight of, people aren't like, but what about my job today? Like the mindset shifts to being about like, if you're in that moment, like it's about rising to the challenge, right? So I think that sometimes it's an interesting thing about resiliency. I think, like, by definition, it comes from trauma, right? So, like, you break your leg and, you know, you don't just go like, hey, just heal, right? Like, you're good, right? You don't need to do anything about that. And I think sometimes that's what we do as leaders when we're talking about changing how somebody is showing up, or how the ways of working, or asking them to, like, learn a new skill or things like that, is like the trauma that comes from just be different, right? Just do something different, just think differently, just learn something new, just accept the change. And, you know, Brad was talking about OCM earlier, and it's like all the tools tell you is like there's a need to change to help somebody through that change. They don't like lead that person through the process, right? And we know that change is individual. So when we talk about like how do you create an organization's worth of that recovery to be stronger as an organization, it takes everybody committing to, we now are responsible for healing from that trauma in a way that's better, right? Instead of like, cool, we're done with that, like everybody's good and we're better now. That's not real. So I think sometimes part of the challenge too, and Bill was sort of talking about the funding challenges, right? Like, how do you make the space and capacity in your organization to be like, now we are focused on being a better organization, creating the right kind of structures for how we, you know, fill those gaps that we observed in our ability to respond to those changes and help people through those changes. Then we talk about like, what are the things that it requires for us as an organization, governance structures, you know, people who have expertise in organizational development and change management, and how you deploy those resources effectively, and changes in leadership and approaches. And that takes an investment in the organization that sometimes we don't have the luxury of investing in.
Yeah, and you're right, change does happen at the individual level, and yet we're often talking about organizational changes.
Yes,
so it's about getting all the people in the rowboat rowing in the same direction at the same time to the same goal. So we're going to go to Brad.
That means going like, do you know where we're going?
Do you know where we're
Describe
going? Describe your Easter bunny,
Yeah.
right? What color is your Easter bunny? Did you know some people's Easter bunny is blue? Who has a blue Easter bunny? Anybody? There's one. And they went. Does that shock everybody? Never thought to ask the color, did you? You can go down this path so far, but I want to go back to Brad because she called you out a little bit on the change management, and so that's right in line with where we want to go. We have been talking about resilience as a reaction to change, right? But here's what we know about truly resilient organizations. They don't just survive change. We know that they prepare for it before it happens. So what strategies have you found, Brad, that are effective in helping your teams proactively build resilience rather than reacting to crisis?
Yeah, we do a couple of things at licensing I think we do fairly well. And, you know, the kind of the direct antidote for, you know, crises and, you know, helping people through change is to sort of inject, you know, a culture of constant process improvement and lean, you know, ahead of time. Build that into your culture so that it's part of your folks' job to improve their job. And so when the time comes that, you know, we have to, you know, in a rapid or high stress way change the way we do business, that they have the muscles and the skills to do that. And you're not starting from scratch. And it really does build, you know, resilience in staff if, you know, part of their job is actually looking at the work they do and finding better ways to do it all the time, every day. the other thing that I think really helps is having a good strategic planning process, so that folks are kind of involved in, the building of that at all levels. In our agency, we start at the top, we conceptualize, then we send it down to our teams, who then work with our, administrators and assistant administrators who work with their teams to come up with the stuff that's really important. It comes back up, and then we put it together in a way that's really easy to understand, and then we talk incessantly about it for, as long as it takes, so it's kind of embedded. And at first we started doing that, the really communicating it out just a couple of years ago. And, that's one of the things that I was a little hesitant about. How much we're a large organization, we have a lot of, exceptional frontline customer service folks who, I didn't feel would really necessarily care that much about, the strategic things that we're taking on. But I've just been amazed. We'll talk about strategic plan, different aspects of it, in our town hall meetings, every meeting for a year, and the engagement has been incredible. And I do think that people enjoy hearing that. They want to feel like they're part of each and every piece and success that we have as we execute on the strategic plan. And so that's fantastic. And also through that strategic planning process, we have an opportunity to line up our technology roadmap with those processes, to get that support, to make all of these things happen. So those are my tips.
No, I think that's super important. So we talked about a big part of resilience is making sure people are moving in the same direction. I have an analogy I like to use. Like I mentioned the rowboat. If you put 10 people in a rowboat and say, go towards that island, what you're going to find in every change is there's always 2 people at the front of the boat that are rowing furiously. They're doing all the hard work of rowing. Those are your early adopters. Those are your innovators. Then you should have 5 people in the middle of the boat that are sitting there taking in the scenery. They're like, yeah, I'll go to that island. That's fine. I'm not going to work super hard until I really know what's in it for me, or I really know how hard this is going to be. And then eventually, when we get super close, I'll pick up an oar and I'll help. But there's always 3 people at the back of the boat with buckets, actively scooping water into the boat, trying to prevent you from going to that particular island. And I don't think that their intentions are to be harmful, right? We say good intentions, poor execution. They just don't realize why they should go to that island. They don't realize what's on the other side of that island. Or maybe, Brad talked a lot about the messaging. Maybe the messaging hasn't come from the right person at that organization. There's a lot of research around what messages should come from what individuals at the organization to the people that need to make the change, which, to the point we made earlier, that's why investing in this discipline of OCM is so important, because it's very, very nuanced. But Lou, we haven't heard from you in a minute. We know from the Easter Bunny paradox that misalignment easily creeps in. Whose Easter Bunny wears a vest? Nobody? Mine? Oh, there we go. Thank you. I thought I was the only one whose bunny had a vest, right? What have you found to be the most effective ways to ensure that everyone in the organization is operating from a shared understanding of challenges and priorities? So we talked about strategy, but now what about challenges and priorities?
Yeah, I think with any organization, with real estate, it's location, location, location. With running a large organization, it's communication, communication, communication. You've got to be able to connect with your staff. You've got to be able to send it out in different ways for them to understand what is going on, why it's going on. And you have to be on the same page when you're delivering those messages. If you ever want to know what's going on with your organization, just have your leader open up a town hall with 1,000 people and then say Q&A. And you will be stunned at where people are in the knowledge process. Some people are like, what's going on with Inslee's budget? And you're like, that's way old. We're on to now Ferguson's priorities. We're doing X, we're doing Y, we're doing Z. And it doesn't go away. If you stop communicating, if you just take a break, you're just leaving tons of people behind. And then when you ask them to do this new thing, they're like, why? And then you try and tell them, and they go, that doesn't make sense. And they're like, well, it would make sense if you were along the journey with us. If you knew everything that was going along the way, you would be like, of course, this is what we need to do now. So I used to do a thing on Fridays where I would walk around our facility. We have about 249,000 square feet, 1,900 employees, and I would walk around and I would just enter meetings and just say hi and find out what folks are working on. And folks are always very excited to share their work because they're very proud of their work. Well, when COVID happened and they all went home, it was a pretty quick stroll. There was 25 people in our facility, and I was one of them. So the other 24 people didn't really want to talk to me because they were doing stuff. And so I talked to the comms person, and I said, hey, I feel like I'm losing touch with the agency. You know, I used to go around and see people and do things. And she's like, well, why don't we just do it virtually? So that first meeting was rough. We opened it up to the whole agency. I had over 400 people come to the meeting. We had nothing planned. I was just like, hi, everybody. And so that was unanticipated. I didn't think people would be interested. But what I discovered was, of course they're interested. It's the middle of COVID. When are we going back to work? What's happening? How are we going to keep going? You know, when am I going to get my office chair? Because remember, we only sent people home for 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks. How am I going to get my office chair? What's happening? So we then sort of organized it better. And we had little components of the meeting where we would talk about X, Y, Z, introduce new people, and then we would have the Q&A. The Q&A is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because we've discovered now we have over 600 people who attend the meetings. And the Q&A is getting smaller because we're employing communication strategies from all over the agency. Our intranet message every week, our director sends a message out that's orchestrated by our comms director. So she writes it to sort of let people know where we are on that next step. What's the next thing we're doing? We know last week this bad thing happened, and then we sort of dealt with it, and now where are we at? And so as I meet with them, I have my HR person, my IT person, I have the key people ready to answer questions, and people will just put things in the chat and say, what have you heard about this? What have you heard about that? Of course, the first time Ferguson said the word furlough, everyone said, well, what does that mean? And I was like, well, it means a lot of things. It's very complicated. You know, you've got the collective bargaining agreement. You have the furloughs. You have previous experience where we didn't go the full biennium. We bought it back halfway. There's a lot of variables. And so on the face of it, it looks frightening. 24 days, losing 4.19% of your income right off the bat. But then you take these other things into consideration and you get comfort with it. And people are like, oh, I understand. So I would say communicate, communicate, communicate. And even though we're all very important people and we have meetings to go to and things and we might not have time to do it, you got to make time. You got to make time so your staff knows what's going on, because then they'll lean into the work instead of sit back and not understand, not row, while you got everyone in the back trying to bail us out. One part of our organization had a little trouble. They got really behind in their work. They had like 15,000 tickets backlogged in this team. And it all came to light. You know, the complaints started coming in, and we're like, what's going on over there? We're like, they got super behind. So during one of our big meetings, we said, hey, everybody, we're going to be asking for volunteers. There's a team that got in trouble. They got really behind for X, Y, Z reasons. And we're going to put out a call. And the concern was no one was going to respond. We needed 15 people to volunteer. We had 65 volunteer. Because they knew what we were doing, what we needed. They understood there was a problem. And they love the agency and they love the mission. And as long as you keep interacting with them and spend a portion of your day doing that, they'll come along with you. And you don't have to drag them screaming and kicking, and you don't have to have, you know, terrible employee surveys. At our agency, our survey response is 99%.
Wow.
99%, because
Wow.
because what I've told employees, and they believe me, is if you respond, we have a group that does the responses for the whole agency, and they try and do something agency-wide to make things better. And then each division is required to set up their group to make their division better on the specific issues their team might be having, their division. And we actually do it. And we've been doing it for 10 years. And when you do it, people will respond. And they'll say, okay, fine, I'll put in my 2 cents if you're actually going to do something with it. So my advice would be talk to your people from the highest leadership down to the unit managers. You got to talk to people. You got to tell them what's going on and be honest with them, because they're big boys and girls, they can take it.
I think it's such an important point. You know, people going through change, they say they need to hear it 5 to 7 times, 5 to 7 different ways before it hits. So you talked about town halls, you talked about emails, you talked about one-on-one connections, you talked about dropping by, right? That's 4 ways, right? So your point is really valid. Communicate, 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 but it's not just I told you, right? Some people need a PowerPoint, some people need a video, some people, you know, need an after hours conversation. It's because change, again, is at the individual level. So 5 to 7 times, 5 to 7 ways. I think it's more 5 times that number, truly, especially in this remote environment where people feel even more disconnected.
Well, especially when you're giving them hard news. It's easy to accept great news. Hey, you're all going to get a 20% raise tomorrow. You're all going to go home and accept that immediately. But if it was a cut, you would be like, come again? I wanted to say one downside with having all agency meetings is you will meet a lot of people from your agency at Costco, Target, Hagen, all the places around here that you've never met before, and they'll come up to you like they've known you for their whole life. And they'll be like, hey, Lou. My wife's name is Shelly. Hey, Shelly, how's everything going? And my wife's like, introduce me. I'm like, I don't know who that is. Yes, I don't know who that is.
I don't think you're supposed to admit that on stage.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. But we've had, you know, our agency, we've had over 400 new employees in the last 4 years.
Wow.
We have behavioral health within our agency, and with the behavioral health crisis, the legislature's thrown a lot of money at it. So with the growth and with the hybrid, I haven't met a lot of people in person.
So that's a lot of change, just 400 new employees infused into an organization, right? So Tuckman's stages of group development would say you're starting all over at forming, going through storming, norming for forming, and all over with every new employee that comes in. So that's a lot.
I think the key there is that it doesn't end. It's, you know, Scott's point about IT, which is constant change. Your work environment is constant change. It just is. There's new things, there's new bosses, there's new employees, there's new partnerships, there's new everything. So if you don't have that mindset of constant engagement and getting on board, you know, think about the dinner table every night, asking what's going on. You know, I find it interesting, families that don't have any idea what each other are doing. I'm like, do you guys eat dinner together?
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's every man for himself. And I'm like, well, that's why you're finding out about the basketball tournament on Friday that's going to be in Portland on Saturday. You know, my wife and I sit down every night. We do the debrief, talk about how the day went, what's on the agenda for the next week or two. I admittedly don't remember as much probably as I should. I get surprised.
5 to 7 times, Shelley, 5 to 7 ways.
Yeah, but we do that every day, so we're on the same page and we know what's happening. And you have to do that at work. It's an everyday thing. There's no like, we'll just do a quick team build, we're all good, let's call it a quarter. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
I see Scott biting his tongue, so I'm going to go to Scott.
I was just going to say, everything you're saying spot on, and because the thing is, like at Ecology, we've had 50% of our staff are new within the last 5 years. And so this idea, and you know, they're all working with their own environmental programs, right? So you got air quality, you got water resource, you got water quality, right? So they're working through their own changes through legislation, everything else like that. And then they're also trying to adapt to the changes at the agency level, right? So you've got agency change, you got legislative change, you got environmental change, you've got all these things happening. And when we start to go, well, everybody understands, everybody's got it now. Well, there's 2 new employees that started yesterday that have no idea what you're talking about, right? So it's this constant need to communicate in through all of those different ways like you're talking about, because like I just started doing a video because we recognize that not everybody's going to sit and read the CIO newsletter or something that we put out there, like delete,
What?
move
They're not
on.
reading your newsletter? Stop
It's like
it.
reading bills,
Copy
right?
me on that, Scott.
I mean, I put bills in the read later, and I pick it up 6 months later. I'm kidding, Bill. I read it
They're
right
very
away.
good. I don't know why he would do that. They're very
But
good.
like I'll watch a video really quickly because it's
Yes.
5 minutes. I get all the information very quickly. I'm listening to it. I'm auditory. I can hear it. And so, like Lou is saying, you've got to be able to communicate in multiple ways in order to capture as much of your audience as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. All right, so in our last 10 minutes, I'm going to come to each of you with the same question. We'll start with Lisa, and then we'll go on down the line, and it is, let's look ahead. What are the biggest resilience challenges facing government leaders in the next 5 to 10 years, and what can all of us start doing now to prepare for that? It's an easy question, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge is probably the one that it's not necessarily a 5 years from now challenge, it's a today challenge, right? Which is like the uncertainty of what's going to happen like tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that, right? And I think like with administration changes at both the state and federal level, I think part of our work is understanding what the strategic priorities, what's important to our state and our citizens, and being able to like elevate and make sure that that's clear and visible to the people who make the decisions about what our strategic priorities are, which is sometimes us, but often other people get to have a say in that as well. And I think for us, like that, the muscle that we have to build is really about, so I've had the opportunity to build a bunch of agile teams at this point in my career. And one of the things I've learned is the thing that people actually act on is a task. The work that people actually do is a task. It's not a strategy. It's not a like RCW, right? It's a like, this is the specific thing for you, specific person. Like we talked about change as individual, execution is also individual. One person, one task. The art is how do you get from big strategic goal to someone can do a task that is the accumulation of all of those tasks lead to the delivery on that strategic goal. So one of the things that we've worked through over the last couple of years is when we used to set strategic priorities, I see Jairus right there, he knows this, we would say, this is our strategic priority, and then we might get one of the 40 things that we said was our strategic priority done. And I would imagine we're probably not alone in that challenge, because the thing that you know how to do is the task that you do every day, right? So over the last couple of years, we've done a lot of work on how do we make a strategic priority go from strategic priority, one-line initiative in our strategic plan, down to being a task that someone can act on. And it is not your executive leadership team that acts on those tasks. Right. It's, you know, for us, 2,000 people that go act on those tasks. So building that muscle is a many years in the making process. It means you have to have governance structures, you have to have ways to set priorities, you have to have ways to break down work into projects, you have to have teams that can understand how to like cross-functionally execute on work. And that isn't just an IT thing, that's a like everybody thing. There are a lot of projects that relate to our strategic initiatives that have nothing to do with IT. Yeah. So I think for us that building that life cycle to be able to go from like, here's an RCW to like, here's actionable tasks that people go execute on is the thing we have to have as that uncertainty comes, right? Because that pattern can be applied to any new strategic priority, to any adjustment that we have to make, so.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It is executive leadership's job to say, this is exactly what my Easter bunny looks like.
Right.
Right? Because again, I can say I want an Easter bunny, but ours may not look the same, right? So that's where you have to set that vision, which is hopefully what your strategic direction does.
And I think Scott was sort of talking about this tension earlier of like, the strategic priorities, like the Easter bunny thing being, anyway, I lost my train of thought. But
I hate it when that happens. There's a thing there. There's totally a thing there.
That's
Brad's
okay.
going to save us. What are the biggest resilience challenges in the next 5 to 10 years for government?
Well, I think that, to sort of circle back on some stuff that Bill mentioned in his keynote, I think we are really going to have to focus on efficiency and doing things at an enterprise level. Because my greatest fear for the next, 5, 10 years is actually something I've never really worried about before, and that's money, resources, and actually, having the budgets to accomplish everything we need to get done. at licensing, I've been at licensing for about 23 years, and the first 20 years of that, never had to worry about money. I lived in the world of gas tax and rainbows, just tremendously, stable funding sources, and, the ups and downs never really affected us. But now it's different, and, the state is looking for new ways to fund transportation, which we're part of, because we're starting to, to see declining revenues. What's happening at the federal level is probably going to have ramifications for years to come. And so, I think that we're just going to need to, get down in the trenches and help our folks use the tools they have and, communicate, innovate, make our processes better, and hopefully, create some, enterprise-wide services that really help us deliver more with fewer potential resources.
Yes, enterprise-wide. Applause? Yes. Scott West, same question. Biggest resilience challenges facing government leaders over the next 5 to 10 years, and what can we do now to prepare?
Well, and I'll make this quick. I think that for the state, we have to come to the realization that artificial intelligence is not going to go away. It's going to be baked into everything you do, and into everything. And I mean, everything you do will have artificial intelligence baked into it. Your job is going to change dramatically over the next 10 years, whether you want it to or not. Smarter computing, quantum computing starts to get us into the realm of, along with AI, and the idea around cybersecurity is going to be the biggest threat to the state over the next 10 years that we have ever seen. When an 8-year-old kid can break into the Bank of America through using ChatGPT to write code to find a deficiency in the code, that makes me pause and go, an 8-year-old is capable of doing that. So, I mean, again, you've got to, for us, I think those are going to be the fundamental changes that technology is bringing that leadership needs to start embracing and figure out, how do we work through that, and how do we start to educate our staff better on where that's going.
No, I love it. Lou, final word. How'd you work that?
I said at the end. What do I think is going to happen next 5 or 10 years? It doesn't really matter what I think. It's going to be stuff, right? You could guess the federal government, you could guess budgetary issues. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be, things are going to happen, challenges are going to happen. And those challenges are going to be met by agencies that are nimble, and they're ready to go after it and figure out how they're going to do it. Hire the best people, train them, talk to them, give them the authority to do their jobs. Get to know your authorizing environment. Get to know other agencies. Cross-collaborate. Do all the things that make sense to have a strong, viable entity. One pet peeve of mine is sometimes I've seen staff members maybe not treat some of our partners very well, or in the vendor community. That irritates the hell out of me, because I'm like, these are our partners. These are people who we need, especially in hard times. We need them to come to the table. We need them to help us out with things, maybe give a little bit here, now, while we're in this financial trouble. And then maybe later they'll reap the reward a little bit more. And so working with all those ancillary folks all around you and making sure that you're just ready for anything. Because if you would have told me we were going to have a pandemic, I would have laughed in your face. Because I remember the bird flu and this and that. I think DOC bought 10,000 body bags. They were ready for, just biblical bad stuff to happen inside the prisons. None of that happened. But the pandemic did come. And it was real, and people lost their lives, and our agency was dealing with it. And the one thing I could say is that the people I was working with, I was confident in their ability to do what we could do for the people we serve. And I wasn't as concerned with that. The pandemic was its own thing. It was doing stuff, and it was changing the way we worked and lived, and we adapted. And so that's what I would say. It doesn't really matter what's coming in the future. You just got to be ready for it.
I think that's true. It was, the fall of 2019, and I was participating with a leadership team, not my current IT leadership team, a different leadership team, in a tabletop exercise. And the scenario was something happens, and nobody's allowed to come to campus. And the entire leadership team erupted into laughter, and they said, don't worry, they'll figure out a way to get us to work. And then March came 6 months later, and guess what? Nobody was allowed on campus.
on that point, we had a project that was failing. The largest group of people in our agency is our call center folks, sort of our frontline folks. They're the only ones who weren't able to telework. So telework had spread throughout the agency, you know, remember the day a week thing or the, you know, couple days, whatever it was, but they couldn't do it, and the project was an IT project and it was failing. And the sponsor of the project was the reason it was failing. And so I was like, is this ever going to get done? You know, this is a big inequity we have in our agency, and they said we just can't seem to get any traction. So we put one of the best of our best on it, and she destroyed it, and a month later, we sent everyone home. So we wouldn't have had a call center for Medicaid, which would have been a problem.
Yeah.
But we got lucky on that one.
Awesome. I think the lights are our metaphorical hook. What do y'all?
It is.
Hey, will you join me in thanking the panel today for the conversation? Thank you, everybody.